Put the bottle down. Manager says you stole it.
I paid. Receipt's right here, timestamp. Check the cameras.
How do I know you didn't pick that receipt up off the floor?
Hands where I can see them. I'm a U.S. Army Master Sergeant. I'm not going to the back office for water I bought.
Turn around. You're under arrest for theft.
Asking you to read a receipt isn't disorderly. You're about to make...
The harsh LED lights of the Superway market hummed overhead on a Tuesday afternoon in Houston, Texas. Officer Brad Miller walked through the sliding automatic doors at 2:15 p.m., responding to a call about a shoplifter. The man he was about to confront had done absolutely nothing wrong. That man was me, Master Sergeant Marcus Thorne, a 39-year-old black combat veteran with 2 Bronze Stars, 16 years of military service, and a record without so much as a speeding ticket. I had just finished buying groceries for my elderly mother, who was recovering from knee replacement surgery. In the next 12 minutes, Officer Miller would make choices that would cost him his badge, his career, and his future in law enforcement. Every second of what happened was captured on 4 different high-definition security cameras. If you are reading this, where are you from? Keep that in mind as I tell you this, because this story is about to get intense. I stood 6'2" with the rigid posture that comes from nearly 2 decades of military discipline. That Tuesday afternoon, I was on 2 weeks of leave from Fort Hood, visiting my mother in Houston. She had undergone surgery 3 weeks prior and was still struggling with getting around, so I had driven down to help her maintain the house. One of my daily missions was the grocery run. My mother had given me a list. That morning, almond milk, cage-free eggs, chicken breast, fresh kale, sourdough bread, and a case of bottled water. Standard rations for the week ahead. I went through the store systematically, the way I did everything. I grabbed a cart, maneuvered through the aisles, checked items off the list one by one, and headed to the self-checkout when I was done. The store was quiet. It was mid-afternoon on a weekday, so most of the registers were open. I scanned each item with precision. Beep milk, beep eggs, beep chicken. I went through the entire cart, bagged everything, and paid with my debit card. The receipt spooled out. I folded it and tucked it into my palm, planning to give it to my mother so she could balance her checkbook. As I pushed my cart toward the exit, I reached into one of the bags and pulled out a single bottle of water from the case I had just purchased. It was humid in the store, typical for Houston, and I'd been walking around for 20 minutes. I cracked the seal and took a long drink. I didn't think twice about it. The water was paid for. The receipt was in my hand. I was just thirsty. But the store manager, Brenda Stokes, saw something different. Brenda was a 55-year-old white woman who had managed this Superway location for 9 years. She prided herself on being a hawk for loss prevention. She had stopped dozens of shoplifters over the years, earning praise from corporate. When she saw me drinking from that water bottle, while still inside the perimeter of the store, something clicked in her brain. She saw a black man consuming merchandise before exiting the doors. Despite having no actual evidence of theft, and despite not checking the monitors to verify anything, she made a snap judgment. She walked briskly toward me, her heels clacking on the polished concrete. "Excuse me, sir. Sir, did you pay for that water?" I stopped and turned around. I was used to this kind of scrutiny. It happened more often than I cared to discuss the suspicion, the assumptions, the exhausting need to constantly validate my presence. Prove I paid. Prove I wasn't a threat. "Yes, ma'am," I said, keeping my voice modulated and polite. "Just checked out." I held up the receipt that was still clutched in my hand. "It's all on here." Brenda didn't look at the paper. She didn't take it from me to read the itemized list. She had already written the narrative in her head. "I need you to come with me to the office so we can verify that." I felt the muscles in my jaw tighten. "You can verify it right here. The receipt is time-stamped. It shows I paid 3 minutes ago. Just look at it. Store policy requires verification in the office." When there's a question about payment, there shouldn't be a question. I'm showing you the proof right now. Brenda's expression turned rigid. Sir, I am asking you to cooperate. If you refuse, I will have to call the police. I took a slow, deep breath. I had been in combat zones. I had been under enemy fire. I had seen things that would break most men. But standing in a grocery store in my home state, being accused of stealing water I had legally purchased, made my blood pressure spike in a way firefights never had. Ma'am, you can call whoever you want. I am not going to any back office when I haven't done anything wrong. I paid for my groceries. Here is the receipt with my card number and the time. You can check your security cameras if you don't believe me, but I am not going to be treated like a criminal for shopping while black. The words came out sharper than I intended, but I was tired. Tired of being shadowed in aisles. Tired of being watched like a suspect. Tired of having to prove my innocence just for existing in spaces where some people thought I didn't belong. Brenda pulled out her phone and dialed 911. Officer Brad Miller was just blocks away when the dispatch crackled through his radio. Retail theft in progress at Superway 4400 Westheimer Road. Manager reports, subject consuming merchandise, refusing to cooperate. Miller was 28 years old, with 5 years on the Houston Police Department. He liked the authority the uniform granted him. He liked the way the dynamic shifted when he arrived on a scene, the respect, the power. He flipped on his lights and pulled into the lot less than 3 minutes after the call. He walked through the automatic doors with his hand already resting near his holster. It was a stance he adopted to establish dominance immediately. Brenda met him just inside the vestibule, speaking rapidly. "Thank God you're here. That man over there," she pointed toward me. "He drank a water without paying for it. Now he's refusing to come to the office to verify." Miller looked where she was pointing. He saw me standing near my cart, a black man in his late 30s, wearing jeans and a fitted t-shirt, arms crossed, looking frustrated but not aggressive. In Miller's mind, the calculation was instant. Blackmail accusation of theft manager calling police. That was all the data he required. He walked over with that same aggressive posture, chest out, chin up. "Sir," the manager called, "you need to pay for that water and leave." I held up my receipt again. "I already paid. The receipt is right here in my hand." Miller barely glanced at it. "Don't walk away from me. Put your hands where I can see them." I hadn't moved an inch. I was standing on the exact same floor tile. "I'm holding groceries. I'm trying to show you the receipt." "Drop the bags right now." I carefully set down the 2 reusable grocery bags I was holding. Slowly, deliberately, I made no sudden movements because I knew exactly how these situations could deteriorate. "Officer, I paid for everything in this cart. The receipt shows every item. It is time-stamped from 4 minutes ago. The cameras will show me scanning and paying for everything, including this water." Miller snatched the receipt from my hand. He looked at it for maybe 2 seconds, not actually reading the text or checking the time, just holding it like a prop. "How do I know this is your receipt? How do I know you didn't pick it up off the floors?" I stared at him in disbelief. "You're serious right now? Do I look like I'm joking? The receipt is time-stamped 4 minutes ago. The card number matches my debit card. The items on the receipt match what is in my cart. And I am certain the security footage will show me at that kiosk scanning these exact items." Miller's expression darkened. He didn't like being challenged. He didn't like someone pointing out the gaps in his logic. And he especially didn't like it from someone he had already categorized as a perpetrator. "Turn around. Hands behind your back." "For what? What crime am I being arrested for?" "Retail theft and disorderly conduct." "I haven't stolen a thing, and I have been nothing but calm. Asking questions isn't disorderly. You're being argumentative with me. That's disorderly. I felt my military training kicking in. Stay calm. Don't escalate. Don't give them ammunition. But another part of me, the part that had spent 16 years defending the Constitution, refused to submit to this absolute lack of logic. I am requesting your supervisor. I want a sergeant here before you arrest me. Miller actually laughed. You think you're special? Everyone wants a supervisor when they get caught. I am a master sergeant in the United States Army. I am on leave visiting my mother. I have done nothing wrong, and I am formally requesting your supervisor be present. Sure you are, and I'm a general. Turn around. By this point, the store had gone silent. An elderly Hispanic woman who had been in line behind me was watching. A college student in a university hoodie had his phone out recording. A young couple had paused their shopping. Miller grabbed my arm. I didn't pull away, but I didn't turn around either. I stood firm like a statue. You're resisting arrest, Miller announced loudly, performing for the audience. I'm not resisting. I'm standing still, asking for your supervisor before you arrest me for something I didn't do. Miller yanked my arm behind my back hard. The shoulder I had torn during a deployment to Afghanistan seized up in agony. The injury that still required physical therapy. That's my injured shoulder, I said, through clenched teeth. You are hurting me. Should have thought about that before you stole. I didn't steal anything. The handcuffs ratcheted shut around my wrists. Miller made them tighter than regulation. Within seconds, I could feel my fingers tingling. The elderly woman from the checkout stepped forward. Officer, I was right behind this man. I watched him scan every single item and pay with his card. He didn't steal anything. Miller didn't even acknowledge her existence. The college kid with the phone called out, I've got video of him at the checkout. You can see him scanning everything and paying in the background of my video. Miller turned to him with a glare. Step back. This doesn't concern you. It concerns me when someone's getting arrested for something they didn't do. Step back right now, or I'll arrest you for interfering with police business. The kid stepped back but kept his lens focused. I stood there, in handcuffs, in the middle of the superway. My groceries sat in the cart beside me. The receipt that proved my innocence lay crumpled on the floor where Miller had dropped it. A crowd was watching a black veteran get arrested for the crime of staying hydrated. Miller grabbed me by the bicep and marched me toward the exit. My groceries, I said, I need to. You should have thought about that earlier. We walked past the checkout area where I had paid, past Brenda Stokes, who was now looking unsure of herself, past the customers filming. We went through the sliding doors into the humid Texas heat. Miller opened the back door of his cruiser and shoved me inside. Not gently. The hard plastic seat, the smell of stale coffee and sanitizer, the cage separating me from him. I sat there, hands cuffed painfully behind my back, my shoulder throbbing, and felt a cold rage building inside me. Not the hot adrenaline of battle, but the icy resolve of injustice, the rage of being treated as less than human in the very country I had sworn an oath to defend. Miller got in the front and radioed dispatch. One subject in custody for retail theft, transporting to central booking. He gave a description that made me sound hostile and uncooperative. While Miller was into the parking lot filling out his initial report on his laptop, reality was catching up with everyone inside the store. I learned later that the college student had approached Brenda. You need to see this, he told her, playing the video on his phone. It clearly showed me at the kiosk, scanning the case of water, inserting my card, and taking the receipt. Brenda's face went pale. She realized she had just called the police on an innocent man. The assistant manager, who had been in the back, had finally pulled the security tape. He had 4 angles showing my entire shopping trip. He called Brenda immediately. You need to get back here. He definitely paid for everything. Brenda rushed to the office and watched the footage. It was undeniable. The timestamps matched perfectly. She had made a terrible mistake based purely on bias. She ran out to the parking lot. Miller was still typing. She knocked on his glass. "Officer, I need to talk to you." Miller rolled down the window looking annoyed. "Ma'am, I'm processing the arrest." "He paid for everything. I have the security footage. 4 cameras show him scanning every item and paying. This was a mistake." Miller stared at her. "You called 911 saying he stole." "I was wrong. I made an assumption. The cameras prove he paid. He has a valid receipt. He did nothing wrong." This was the moment. The off-ramp. Miller could have admitted the error, uncuffed me, apologized, and let me go home to my mother. Instead, he doubled down. "Mom, he was uncooperative and disorderly. He refused to comply with store personnel. That's still a violation." Brenda shook her head. "He wasn't disorderly. I watched the whole thing. He was frustrated. But he wasn't disorderly. He just kept trying to show us his receipt. Please just let him go. I am not pressing charges. It's not up to you anymore. He's under arrest." Miller rolled up the window and put the car in drive. The ride to the station took 20 minutes. I sat in silence. I knew the drill. Anything I said would be twisted. I would wait for counsel. At the station, I was taken to booking. The intake officer was a guy named Davon Lewis. I noticed a Marine Corps tattoo on his forearm. When Davon took my wallet to inventory my property, he found my Common Access Card, CAC. Master Sergeant Marcus Thorne, active duty. Davon looked at the ID, then at Miller. "He's active duty." "He says he is." Davon held up the card. "This is a DOD ID. It's real. What's the charge?" "Retail theft." Davon pulled up Miller's report. He read it, then looked at Miller with the weary expression of a man who had seen too many bad busts. "Where is the stolen merchandise?" Miller hesitated. "The store has it." "You didn't recover any stolen items." The manager said he drank a water. "Did you check the receipt?" He had a receipt, but did the receipt show the water? The manager called it in. I responded. Davon closed the computer screen. "I'm not processing this. Call your supervisor." "What, you have to process him?" "I am not booking an active duty master sergeant for retail theft when you have no evidence. He has a receipt, and the store manager is now saying it was a mistake. Call your supervisor." Miller's supervisor was Captain Reynolds, a 20-year veteran. He arrived 30 minutes later. After hearing Davin's explanation and reading the report, the look on his face suggested someone was about to lose their job. He walked to the holding cell where I was waiting. "Master Sergeant Thorne." I looked up. "Yes, sir. I'm Captain Reynolds. On behalf of the department, I apologize. This arrest was improper. You are being released immediately. No charges will be filed." "I want documentation of this," I said, my voice steady. "I want the names and badge numbers of everyone involved. I want copies of all reports, all body cam footage, and the store security footage. I want it in writing that I was arrested without probable cause." Reynolds nodded. "You are entitled to all of that. And again, I sincerely apologize." "With all due respect, sir, your apology doesn't change the fact that I was handcuffed in front of a crowd, thrown in a cage, and treated like a felon for buying groceries. Your officer injured my shoulder. He ignored witnesses. He refused to look at evidence. An apology doesn't fix that." "You're right. It doesn't. But I will make sure this is addressed." 2 hours after being arrested, I walked out of the station. My mother was waiting outside. She was 70 years old, leaning on a cane, and she had driven herself there in a panic. She took one look at my face, and she knew. She knew the humiliation. She knew the fatigue. "I'm so sorry, baby," she whispered. I didn't respond. I was already strategizing. The next morning, I contacted the legal assistance office at Fort Hood. My attorney, Captain Sarah Jenkins, was incensed. You have witnesses video a receipt, and you were arrested anyway. This is a civil rights violation. She helped me file a formal complaint with Internal Affairs. She also flagged the Department of Defense. When a senior NCO is wrongfully arrested, the military pays attention. The Internal Affairs investigator, Lieutenant Maria Garcia, was thorough. She pulled the tape. It showed everything exactly as I had said. She interviewed the witnesses. She interviewed Brenda Stokes, who admitted fully to her bias. Then came the investigation into Officer Miller. Garcia found patterns. Over 5 years, Miller had generated complaints at a rate 60% higher than his peers. Garcia ran the numbers looking for racial disparities. She found that Miller arrested minority subjects at a rate 3.8 times higher than white subjects in identical scenarios. His use of force incidents involved minorities in 15 out of 17 cases. In situations where he had discretion to arrest or warn, he chose arrest for minorities 87% of the time. It wasn't a mistake. It was a methodology. Lieutenant Garcia's report was scathing. Her recommendation, immediate termination. Miller tried to fight it. He had a hearing. He claimed he was just following procedure. But the evidence showed he had ignored the receipt, the witnesses, and the manager's retraction. He was fired from the Houston Police Department, effective immediately. But I wasn't done. I filed a federal civil rights lawsuit. The city's legal team looked at the 4 camera angles, the witness statements, and Miller's personnel file. They knew they would lose in court. They settled for $340,000. The settlement also mandated policy changes, mandatory review of security footage before arrest in retail theft cases, and independent audits of arrest data by race. And they had to apologize publicly. 3 months later, at a press conference, the chief of police read a statement acknowledging the wrong. I stood there in my dress blues, the rows of ribbons on my chest catching the light. I stepped to the microphone. I have served this country for 16 years, I told the cameras. I have led soldiers in dangerous places, and I came home to be arrested for buying water, not because I committed a crime, but because to Officer Miller, my skin color was probable cause. That tells you everything you need to know about how we are seen, not as citizens, but as threats. The video from the store went viral. Millions saw me pay for my water. Millions saw me get cuffed. Brenda Stokes was fired by Superway Corporate. Officer Miller applied to 9 other departments and was rejected by every single one. He is currently working as a security guard at a distribution center for $16 an hour. I returned to active duty and was promoted to Sergeant Major last year. I still do the grocery shopping for my mother when I visit, though we go to a different chain now. Educational note. This story is a retelling based on true events, though names and locations have been changed to protect privacy. It serves as a critical lesson in implicit bias and due process. The lesson here is vital authority without accountability is dangerous. Officer Miller had the evidence of innocence right in front of him, a receipt and witnesses, but his internal bias overrode the facts. For those in positions of power, from store managers to law enforcement, the duty is to investigate facts, not validate assumptions. 1 bottle of water, 1 receipt, and 1 assumption changed lives forever. Always look at the evidence before you judge the person. Justice isn't just about punishing the bad guys, it's about protecting the innocent. Never stop fighting for your dignity.